Hi and welcome back to Terry Talks Movies, and I've got a Dutch angle on the shelf here, but I don't particularly care. Yeah, the beard's slowly growing back, way too slowly. I've tried everything. I've tried putting manure on it. It hasn't worked. But let's get on with talking about movies. In this case, 3 monster movies. 2 of them are from the 1990s. 1 of them is from the 1960s. Do one of the newer ones first. If you've seen this movie and you don't like it, get the hell off my channel. This is one of the great monster movies of the 1990s. It has incredible chemistry with the people involved in it. The practical special effects work really well. The sense of escalation works well. It's got the perfect location for a monster movie. And the perfect location in this case is the Alabama Hills in California. Even though it's supposed to be in a town called Perfection in Nevada. And of course it's Tremors, Ron Underwood's classic monster movie with Fred Ward, Kevin Bacon's in it as well. It's just a lovely piece of film. The rewatchability factor on this is dialed up to 11. We all know the story that 2 guys, Val and Earl, are handymen in the little town of Perfection, Nevada. There are a whole bunch of people there. There are some survivors played by Michael Gross and Reba McEntire. And Michael Gross has been in Tremors movies ever since. And there have been any number of sequels. And in 2003, there was even a TV series for a short time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So Val and Earl start noticing mysterious things. An old guy they know who lives out in the sticks, where there are no sticks, is up on top of a power pole and has died of dehydration. A sheep farmer they know has disappeared, and they find his face under the ground. And their car gets hooked up on something when they back up to do a U-turn. And when they get back to town, they find out that there's a big, long snake-like thing attached to the rear axle. And then things escalate from there. There are so many things to love about Tremors. The chemistry between Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward is perfect. The ensemble is just perfect. Finn Carter is really good as the female scientist who's studying some geological and seismic anomalies in the area. And everybody expects her to know all the answers because she's a scientist. And she says to them, I don't know the answers. The survivalist couple played by Michael Gross and Reba McEntire are a lot of fun. The odd kind of survivalist in that they're not racist, which is a very comforting thing. They're armed to the teeth. They've got that kind of survivalist mentality, but they've in some ways got their feet on the ground, and I like that a lot. The people in the town, there's a lady who makes pottery and has a young daughter. There's Guy Walter, who runs the local store. There's a whole bunch of other things. So you get the sense of community and place wonderfully in Tremors. You know the town of Perfection. You know the geography of the outlying area, which is incredibly important to the plot. And you know that Val and Earl are somehow going to prevail. The monsters themselves, the graboids, are a beautiful monster creation. The fact that their tongues are a whole bunch of snakes that come out of their mouths. The fact that they're like armoured dolphins underground. That they can learn, that they're quite intelligent too. There's nothing worse than dumb monsters. You've got to have a certain intelligence in a monster to make it truly menacing. And the way that the monster is handled as the awareness and as the threat escalates is really good. The things that the people in the town, and particularly Val and Earl, come up with to manage the graboids and to survive these 3 beasts that are basically eating everybody they possibly can in town, and all the livestock as well, are imaginative. They're kind of location appropriate. There are things you would find in that kind of a place. There's not something totally inappropriate that they're using there. They are using the resources you would have in a shitty little dusty town in Nevada. And I love that. I love that intelligence of scripting that doesn't fudge the resolutions. That works for me because it respects the audience for a start. The fact that they do things intelligently, and even though these guys aren't educated, they're pretty good practical people, and they manage to survive in spite of the fact that the graboids learn from their mistakes, which is another beautiful piece of it as well. The bit with the pipe bombs is a really nice indication of that. This is joyous fun, this movie. And any movie that starts with Kevin Bacon pissing off the edge of a cliff is a movie that you've got to at least be well disposed towards right at the very beginning. Now, this version's the Universal Blu-ray. We've got the Making of Tremors featurette, Kevin Bacon profile, Michael Gross profile, Reba McEntire profile. Why the hell isn't there a Fred Ward profile on this? I could watch this every year and still have a lot of fun. I think that these kind of monster movies are the kind that you take to your heart and they become a part of what you love in cinema. And when there's nothing else on, if you were looking through your streaming services and looking through the menus and looking at that stupid bloody algorithm that doesn't understand you at all, and no algorithm does, at least for me, and you see Tremors coming up, you're kind of more likely than not to play it, watch it, and enjoy it. So that's the very first of the three movies that I'm going to talk about. This is a solid recommend from me. If you haven't watched it in a while, rewatch it. You're going to have a good time. And I'm kind of inclined to see if I can find a graboid model somewhere on the internet. If anybody wants to send me one, send me a graboid model, because they are one of the great monsters, even though the cover art doesn't depict them accurately. Their jaws are more like beaks than they are toothy, sharky things. But yeah, this is just a great movie. I love it. Now I'm going on to a second one which had a very problematic production, mostly because the producer in charge was Harvey Weinstein. The director was a guy who went on to recreate horror in the 21st century. It's Guillermo del Toro's Mimic, and this is the director's cut. This isn't the cut that Weinstein totally screwed up back in the 1990s. This is Guillermo del Toro's definitive cut. If you're going to watch any version of Mimic, this is the one to get. This is the one that respects the source material. Now, this movie is based on a story by Donald A. Wollheim, which had naturally evolving large insects that mimic the shape of human beings. That was the general thing that they took from it to make this movie. Now, this was Guillermo del Toro's second movie after the wonderful Spanish language film Kronos that he made in Mexico, which is another recommend for me. I can't think of a Guillermo del Toro movie that I wouldn't recommend to people to watch. But I went back and watched Mimic with Mira Sorvino, who was treated shabbily by Harvey Weinstein, and her then partner Quentin Tarantino went to bat with her against Weinstein and kind of risked his own career. There are a lot of people who dismiss Quentin Tarantino because he was basically, all of his early movies were produced by Weinstein, but I think there were a lot of times where he pushed back as much as you could against somebody who had the incredible power that an arsehole like Weinstein had in Hollywood. But this one works really well. It's got a lot of the things that Guillermo del Toro loves. It's got slime, it's got insects, and it's got slow escalating horror. The setup is really interesting. I think the script really is a powerful one. A disease called Strickland's disease hits New York City. It's spread by cockroaches, and it affects children like polio did back in the day, and still does it because of anti-vaxxers. The disease has a respiratory aspect to it. It kills some kids and cripples others. So it's a kind of a combination of SARS and polio. And an entomologist, played by Mira Sorvino, creates a hybrid insect through genetic manipulation, which spreads a toxin that kills all cockroaches. The insect's about that big, and it has a gooey, bubbly secretion that comes out of its ass that kills cockroaches. And because they kill the vector for the disease stops them. They haven't been able to find a vaccine. They haven't been able to find anything else to combat Strickland's disease. But they get rid of it. And for some reason, it's geographically locked to New York City and the cockroach population there. It can't be spread between people. We know a lot more about contagion these days. Mira Sorvino's character and her boyfriend, played by Jeremy Northam, who I mentioned when I talked about the movie Cypher a few episodes ago. He's not as good in this as he is in Cypher, and apparently on set Mira Sorvino and Jeremy Northam didn't really get on for I don't know what reason, but not my business. Because of her success, Mira Sorvino, scientist, has her own lab, and a couple of street kids bring in a really funny looking bug they find. And that funny looking bug is stolen back by something man-sized that flies through the window of her lab. So the Jeremy Northam character works for the health department, and his sidekick is Josh Brolin. And Josh Brolin's pretty good in this one. He gets a small, good role. And you can see why Josh Brolin has gone on to bigger and better things, since he's very good in this film. They investigate a disease attached to a fake church, where a whole bunch of illegal immigrants are being held in slavery to make clothing. But there's more to it than that. The people are very run down, they're disease-ridden, and they're scared of the Dark Angel, something called the Dark Angel, which preys on them and has taken a few of their number. From one end of things, Jeremy Northam's character is investigating the mystery. From the other end of things, his wife, played by Mira Sorvino, who is pregnant but doesn't know it because the pregnancy testing thing didn't work. And they get separated, and he knows that she's pregnant, she doesn't know she's pregnant. So they start investigating in the subways, because that's where the path leads them, and they find an enormous infestation of these man-sized insects, which have lungs, which explains the large size of them, which have been breeding for 3 years since she cured Strickland's disease, and are mutated versions of the bug that she created. Now, this movie doesn't pull any punches. Right from the start, it does the things that are taboo in American horror films. It kills kids right at the start. The monster kills 2 kids who are looking for the insects. And that's good, because, not because I don't like kids, because I like kids. It's good because it tells us that nobody is safe. And so the movie has this analogy of descending into hell. The people involved, including a transit policeman played by Charles S. Dutton, who really does a superb job. There's also a little bit of a side character, another scientist played by F. Murray Abraham. He gets a couple of nice beats in there as well. The ensemble in this is fantastic. The actors are all quite well cast. And so they descend into this hell to try to find the one male of this hive of these animals, because there's only one male with these insects. A whole bunch of fertile females. The male fertilizes all the females. And so they've got to find that and destroy it before these insects can spread to other cities. I like this one. It's a beautiful horror movie. I've seen the original cut that Harvey Weinstein did. Watching this version makes it such a deeper experience to watch this movie. There is this sense of another world beneath the world that is really terrifying. And the action set pieces, and of course in this kind of movie you need action set pieces, like in Tremors, are beautifully created and beautifully modulated, and use the things that are in the environment. Good horror movies do that. The weapons you need, and the resources you need, and the barriers you need to overcome, very often in this kind of monster movie, are part of that environment. And for the filmmakers to know that and to use that is the secret sauce in a good monster movie. I really enjoyed rewatching Mimic. It has jump scares, and it has moments of incredible horror, and also moments of incredible awe when they find just how many of these things are down in the subways. It is one of those what the moments that you look for in this kind of a film. Now, this has got special features as well. It's got a video prologue by Guillermo del Toro, because this is his cut of the film. Audio commentary with Guillermo del Toro. Reclaiming Mimic featurette, which is about recutting it to del Toro's specifications. A Leap in Evolution, The Creatures of Mimic, and the creatures are great. The monster was designed by Rob Bottin, and a whole bunch of different creature workshop kind of people created them. Some of them are puppets, some of them are physical models. I don't think there's much, if any, computer generated effects in here, because it was very rudimentary at the time this movie was made. And there's Back to the Tunnels, Shooting Mimic featurette, there's deleted scenes, storyboard animatics, and a gag reel. So this, even though this may not be as bells and whistles as some other releases of the film, but it's a pretty solid package with enough extras, and with the horse's mouth audio commentary by Guillermo del Toro, that it's really worth checking out and getting a copy of. It's releases like this that make you love physical media even more, because you've got basically the history of the making of the movie and the movie itself. You've got the difficulties of making the movie, one of which was Harvey Weinstein in so many different ways, who didn't understand how powerful a filmmaker Guillermo del Toro is and was, and who ruined it, and ruined a number of careers. He was a hemorrhoid on the arse of movie making. Love that one a lot. So we go from the sublime to the ridiculous, and this one is a network release from England in Eastman Colour and Spectramation. I got this one because it's one of the craziest and worst giant monster movies of the early 1960s. It stars Michael Gough, Margot Johns, Jess Conrad, Austin Trevor, Jack Watson and George Pastel. Conga. Now, if you haven't seen Conga, it's the English version of King Kong with people who were probably self-medicating on, what was the drug of choice then? It's a B movie made by Nat Cohen and Stuart Levy and produced by Herman Cohen, so you know it's schlocky as hell. This one is something to be seen. Basically, there's a scientist called Charles Decker, played by Michael Gough, whose plane crashes in Africa, and he spends a year with natives in Uganda, studying what they do and studying the plants. He's a plant biologist, and for some reason he comes back to England a year later with a baby chimp on his arm, and he's interviewed at the airport by journalists who don't understand what he's doing. He's brought back samples of plants, all of which are carnivorous plants, and they grow very fast and very large. He's got a housekeeper with whom he's having an affair, played by Margot Johns, who wants a bit more than just being the bit on the side and the housekeeper. And he kind of is very dismissive of that because he's a mad scientist. He's concentrating on putting these plants in his greenhouse, cranking the temperature up to 90 degrees, and extracting various chemicals from the plants and hormones, which he then injects into the baby gorilla. What could possibly go wrong? Now, we hate this guy right near the start because, apart from being played by Michael Gough, who was an actor who could play characters that were very easy to hate, at the start they spill some of this serum onto the ground and the cat licks it up. So Decker gets a gun out of the drawer and shoots the cat. Any guy who shoots a cat in a movie, I'm not going to like. I'll be honest with you. He shoots it and then explains to his housekeeper that it's better to shoot the cat than have a lion-sized cat wandering around the place and giving away the game. So he injects Conga, the little baby chimp, with this serum, and it becomes a full-grown chimp within seconds. Decker's having some problems. He works at a college, and the college is thinking of letting him go because he's an asshole and a maniac. So he decides he's going to inject Conga again. It's Conga, not Congo. If I'm saying Congo, I apologise. And it becomes a guy in an ape suit. He also has a way of controlling Conga using the extract of a different plant, which he grinds up and then hypnotizes the ape with it. He then sends the ape off to kill his enemy. This is a little bit of Murders in the Rue Morgue kind of stuff. He then goes back and teaches the classes and kind of latches onto one of the female students, and he tries to kind of seduce her. She's got a boyfriend who's bland as hell, and she wants to be a scientist. Now, to be fair to the character, she's played by an actress called, her name's Sandra, and she's played by Claire Gordon, an actress and model who isn't great as an actress, but gets a couple of nice little character beats in there because she wants to be a scientist, and she knows that if she works with Charles, she will get further in toward her ambition of being a scientist. That's a forward-looking character for this kind of a movie. So things have already gone wrong, and they start going wrong even further, because Charles takes Sandra into his greenhouse to show her all of his carnivorous plants, which are really big, and they feed them chunks of meat. And then he starts macking on her. He starts kind of leching on her, and the housekeeper sees them. So she decides this isn't on. She goes back to the cage where Conga is kept, injects him with even more of the serum, and shit gets serious pretty quickly. And this is where it gets even more insane. Conga grows to room height and kills her, and then breaks through the roof of the house and grabs hold of Charles Decker, played by Michael Gough, and goes on a rampage through Croydon High Street. Meanwhile, Sandra is in the greenhouse and gets her arm chopped by one of the carnivorous plants, and we never see the upshot of that. She's just left there screaming with one of her arms caught in the jaws of an enormous Venus flytrap. Seriously, this is what happens in the movie. So the cops are soon alerted, and Conga is rampaging through London at night. The army and the police get involved. They shoot bazooka charges at Conga, who is for some reason standing next to Big Ben, even though the distance between Croydon and Big Ben is not inconsiderable. So Conga is there with Big Ben in the background roaring, and Conga gets pissed off and throws Michael Gough at the army. He dies because he's been thrown to the concrete, and the army, with a combination of machine guns and bazookas, kills Conga, who falls down at their feet and turns back into a baby chimp. I'm not kidding, this is how it happens. This movie is insane. It's low budget, schlocky, WTF insane, and I love it for that. It's just one of those movies that you can't take seriously from the word go, but it manages to be weird enough to be crazily entertaining. Now, as I said, this is the Region B version from Network, and it's actually got an interesting thing at the start. They try to make it a bit of a movie-going experience in the old school, and they put the trailers for a couple of black and white English comedies at the start of the disc. And that's kind of nice. I like that. I like the fact that they wanted to put you in the headspace of a person going to the cinema in 1961 when the movie was released. That I respect a lot. There's not too much in the way of extras on this. There's a trailer. There's an interview with the guy who plays Sandra's boyfriend in the movie, Jess Conrad, I think it is, who had a minor hit as a pop star in the early 1960s. But yeah, Conga is just mad. And it's a perfect end to this trilogy of monster movies that I've spent the last couple of days enjoying. So I'm of the age where I'm pretty much a monster kid. I grew up loving monster movies. I had the poster for The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms on the wall in my bedroom when I was a kid, along with the Easy Rider poster. Diving back into my monster kid roots, this and the other two were just the perfect thing I needed, because I saw Tommy Wiseau's The Room again before I watched these for the ABC radio gig I do on Thursday nights, and I needed to watch some good honest monster movies after sitting through Wiseau's The Room by myself, which you should never do. If you're ever going to watch Tommy Wiseau's Room, which is considered the worst movie of the 21st century, see it with a bunch of people, self-medicate a little bit beforehand. Never watch it by yourself, because it will bore the fuck out of you. And on that cheerful note, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. You can also support the channel by donating a little bit at patreon.com/paleocinema. Got a couple of other movies that I've got recently that I'm looking forward to doing. And in December, Umbrella Entertainment have put out some really, really good stuff. And I've had an email from them saying they're going to send me copies of it. So December's going to be a fantastic month. And on that note, look after yourselves. Watch some good movies, watch some bad movies. Sit back, relax, and watch a few classic horror films. You're not going to be disappointed. You're not going to be less than entertained. And I'll catch you next time.